This is not what I normally do, but I did want to address my friend Ash Renee on Threads posted this tweet from Brandon Gill that said there's not multiple Americas, there's only one America, and this is a culture we have to defend. And he shares a photo of a white family in the 1950s. This man is married to an Indian woman. So it's just bizarre that they're trying to push this narrative that America is the sanitized 1950s version of America. And you know what the problem is? And you know what we're seeing when we see this extinction burst? An extinction burst, essentially, a term that I'd never heard of before. I credit, oh my God, I can't remember his name. Someone I met on Instagram, who the first time I used it, since then I've researched it. It's related to the Great White Replacement Theory. But in essence, that picture represents what the early European immigrants to this country, because remember, this country was not founded. It existed. Their native people existed on this land. When the British settlers, when the settlers came here and decided to colonize a space, they would be extinct. No, none of them would exist, but for the natives, taking them in, teaching them medicine, canoe, about irrigation, about farming, helping them survive the winter, survive the heat, they would not be here. And then how do they thank them? They slaughtered them and put them in reservations. But that's a story for another day. The early settlers that came after the first immigrants came from Europe. First Western Europe and then Eastern Europe. We're told in order to melt it's the melting pot. You have to shield your Catholicism, your religion, because these are a Protestant nation. You have to shield your familiar sort of things. So the Italians, the big family things, they weren't wanted either. They were treated like trash. The Irish were treated horribly. The first early Europeans were told, in order to be this sanitized version, we will give you in exchange for shielding everything that meant to be you, access, privilege, the benefits of the laws that are for you as nations, despite the fact at the time or shortly thereafter, they would bring in enslaved people from other nations and treat them like chattel slavery, which is like no other nation had chattel slavery, essentially treating human beings, bartering them like as cattle. People had slaves in other regions, and indentured servitude was not the same thing, because Irish people, they would say Irish people were indentured service. It's not the same as treating human, buying, enslaving, and breeding human beings, separating mothers from baby, pardoning and treating them like as if they're property. That's only United States. That's sort of hedonistic, knuckle dragging, Neanderthalish, brutish, hunnish behavior, which is backwards, very violent, is only unique to the United States of America when it comes to slavery. But I digress. Anyway, and they did indeed eventually become white and benefit from that, right? Then later Eastern Europeans. As immigrants start to flood in from other nations, whether the Chinese, because they came in and do the railroads, or the Japanese, or people from South America, eventually in Africa and other nations, the concept of assimilating was harder for them because, one, phenotypically, physically, their skin color, their hair texture, their facial features made it easier for them to be differentiated. And so made it easier for people to say, you guys are different. And so the treatment they got as immigrants, the assimilation was not that easy. So what they do, they held on to what I've seen described as a 64 box of crayons. They came with their cultures. They came with their hijabs and their religions and their foods. And that they enriched the Americans' culture and livelihood. They set up communities. Koreatown in Los Angeles. Eventually, you had a little Haiti in Florida. You have little Italy. You have all these different Somalis in Minnesota, pockets in the United States. And DC has a lot of Ethiopians and West Africans from Nigerian, pockets of communities where they build and settle. They have restaurants and they're thriving and they're colorful and they enrich the world. You still have those people who were sold an 8-box crayon full of just in the 8 boxes, there are much colors. It's like beige, light beige, brown, white, gray. That's what they want them within. These people locked inside this box, this assimilation, this melting pot, that version of that picture that Brandon Gill's posted, that version, the 1950s version, is what they say is to be American. And you're locked in here. They see the flavor, they see the color, they see the music, they see the culture, they see the excitement, they see the smiles, they see the dancing, the tapestry, the folded, the fashion, of outside their box, and they are jealous and envious of these people. And they're like, wow, look at them living out loud. And they're living out loud despite the fact that the nation is actively, while they're living out loud and living fun, enjoying their lives and advancing and thriving, the nation is locking them out of things like the GI Bill, like the Homestead Act. They're putting them in, they're saying separate but equal in the South. They're subjecting them to redlining. The people, the descendants of these people are burning down their towns in Tulsa and Rosewood and Greenwood and Black Wall Street because they're jealous, because they're stuck in this box. And these people are outside living life fully and enjoying. A few people escape. And these are what I call like the folks, the liberals. They escape and they say, hey, we don't want to be stuck in this box. We want what y'all got. We want to sit. We might not be in the cookout, but we want to be next to y'all. We want the flavor. We want the diversity. We want to recognize. We want everyone else. We want this nation. We want all of that. Yes. The people in the box. The folks who are descendants of the Puritans. The religious. Right. They use religion. They use race. They use other things to keep them stuck in this box. And they are strict. And that box is that 1950s picture. And they are just like, this is what we must defend. This is what we defend. This is what we must defend. And it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to keep people in that box. What's making it harder for people to keep people in the box? Not just that these other people are thriving, but these other people are getting political power. These other people are voting. These other people are having more babies than us. When they have more babies than us, at some point, they're going to be a voting age and they're going to be voting. There'll be more of them. So these white districts are no longer be white districts. They're going to be multiracial districts. I live in a county that's multiracial. I live next to a county that's multiracial, a suburb outside of D.C. The representatives still on the board are a tapestry, and that's because it reflects the community. And so when the community gets more diverse, the representative government gets more diverse, whites' power dilutes, and they're scared of what happens when that power dilutes. It'll be harder to keep these people in the box. Why is it hard to keep these people in the box? Because as the representatives becomes more multicultural, as the representatives start looking like the world, and the people in the box start realizing they like their incumbents, because they're incumbents. When people of color, when Black people fight for their rights aren't just for Black people. Disabled community, women, veterans, immigrants, migrants, including some of those immigrants and migrants that come later on and end up stabbing Black Americans in the back. I see you Latinos in Texas and the Cubano Americans in Florida. You vote against the anti-Blackness because you want to be proximate to white, but it's the Black struggle that got you here and got you rights. But anyway, I digress. So the benefits benefit other communities outside just the Black community. The labor movement, people learn. The LGBTQ community learned from the civil rights movement and the suffragist movement. And they learned. They said these people have been resilient. They've been fighting. They're the blueprint of resistance. And other communities benefit not just from the work, but also from what was trained. And so we're all benefiting. When Black leaders or people, multicultural leaders or leaders, they, especially Democrat ones, are going to care for the moms. They're going to care for the children. They're going to care for access. They're going to care for the laborer. And that's the majority of people that vote for Republicans, especially in the red districts. So when they get taken care of, when they're incumbents, when they're stuck with an incumbent that is multiracial, they vote for their incumbent. They start saying, okay, I like what this person's doing for me. I'm voting for the person who's helped improve my life. If that person is not white, if that person is not Republican, that means I'm just going to have to vote for them. And so that's the fear. That's the fear that when multiracial people get political power or get ability to vote, they will vote multiracial people in office. Those multiracial people will then legislate and govern with everyone in mind. And that would make it harder for them to use grievance politics, to use scapegoatism, to use race in order to keep them down. Because while they're keeping those people down, because the states that are in the bottom of education, health, access, wealth, all this sort of stuff, the poor ones are the red states. But why? They vote against their interests because they've been able to use race and grievance politics to keep them in that crayon box. And so they don't want them expanding. And that's what we see. And that's the extension burst. That is the fear. That's behind the voter rolls, the gerrymandering, the immigration crackdown, is because they're fearful of a colorful, expanded global America and the dilution, their grip on people based on those things fractured. J. Joliga, each one teach one. What do you think? Let's talk below.